Hi, I'm Matt Little. I'm the Director of Counselling and Education at Asia, and I'm a proud sponsor of this podcast.
Hi, David.
Good morning. Evening for
Good,
you, I think.
yeah, good morning and good evening. Thank you very much for giving me opportunity to interview you for my podcast.
It's my pleasure.
So I've gone through your profile. I can see you're doing great work. I can also see you are an author, and you are into a different profession. And I wanted to tell about your work to my audience.
Well, I look forward to talking to you, and I've looked at your website, and I'm very impressed with your global view. I think what you're doing is great stuff, and a lot of my readers are very excited that you and I get to work together.
It's a pleasure for me. So can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
If you want the elevator's pitch, as they say. So I was born 9 months after my father got out of the San Quentin Penitentiary for a crime that could have gotten him the death penalty. Um, when he got out, he traveled to the Navajo Indian Reservation for two reasons. Back in those days, the late 40s, early 50s, um, if you went to a reservation, basically anybody with skills would get hired. He could lie about being a violent felon. No one would check his references. And the other thing he was concerned about is his accomplice finding him because he betrayed his accomplice, the guy that helped him commit the crime. My very first conversation with my dad that I remember, we're out driving around and he says, "We have to get rid of your mother because she's crazy. And if you grow up with her, you'll be crazy too." And I knew he meant kill her. And so that's where the book begins. And it's one long, crazy ride, if you will.
So you're from?
I grew up in Arizona, New Mexico. So, as your listeners know, there's one place in America where all four states come together. You can literally put your arms and legs and be in four different states. And it's because it's just a line drawn. So, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado. I grew up about 125 miles south of there in two towns that are just Fort Defiance, Arizona, just inside the Arizona line, and Gallup, New Mexico, which is just outside the New Mexico line in the southwestern part of the United States. Surrounded by Indians, 13 different tribes, but the Navajos being the largest. Navajo Indian Reservation's the size of Pennsylvania. It is enormous. And so my father, after he worked for El Paso Natural Gas Company, worked for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So I grew up on and around the Navajo Indian Reservation all the way until late high school.
So what do you do right now?
Well, so long story short, I'm a lobbyist, a government relations consultant. My firm is called DCLRS, DC being District of Columbia, DC. It's kind of a local, slogan. We are a lobbying firm that helps farmers, agribusinesses, trade associations, small businesses with tax and revenue issues. I have 6 people that work with me, and we've been doing this for over 35 years. Very successful small firm. Been in DC the whole time. Always thought I would move back west. But as you probably already know, life winds up taking over, and the things you think you're going to go do sometimes don't happen.
So apart from your profession, you are into writing.
Yes, I've always wanted to write, and ever since I was a little boy, I kept journals. I don't know that As a little kid, I thought it was journals. She's just scribbling stuff in notebooks, Big Chief tablets. Back in the day, those were. And I always wanted to write. What's interesting is I don't know that I ever wanted to write my life story. One, I didn't think it was that interesting. But one thing I grew to realize over time is that I was hiding a lot of secrets, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, and a lot of unpleasant things from my childhood. And they troubled me, right? I couldn't tell anybody, didn't tell anybody, but you keep this stuff in and it you don't do well. You can't get it out. And I reached all the way to my early 50s, and I realized that I had always been lying to the world. You know, I never told my friends, never told my family hardly what happened. And I had an incident, if you will. I went back to a house that I lived in, my family lived in the town of Gallup, New Mexico. And some of the worst things that happened in my life happened there. And I went back. I would go back ever so often because as a lobbyist, you can travel everywhere. At least I could. And one day I was sitting in front of that house. I always knew that house had buried secrets, things that really troubled me, made me very unhappy. And a man asked me to come on in. He said, "Look, I see you out here all the time." And I told him for the first time exactly what had happened in that house. My father tried to kill my mother, how we abandoned her, and some really horrible things. My older sister tried to commit suicide by swallowing aspirin. And for the very first time, I blurted it all out. And he was a very nice man. He was a retired widow. And he basically said, "Look, I know this has been troubling you your whole life, but you can get past this." And so went back to the hotel where I was staying and called my father. I said, "Do you feel guilty trying to kill our mom? Do you feel guilty with all the horrible things you did?" And he said, "No, this is all your fault, your problem. You're making it all up. You're a coward. You're." And I remember thinking after I hung up, "Oh, I've been trying to live up to what you wanted me to be all my life. This is the biggest prison with invisible walls you could have." I'm disappointed that you don't think I'm great. You're the worst person I can think of. But then I called my mom, who's still alive at 94 and a half. Love my mom. And I said, "Mom, you begged me to leave with you and be the head of the household, to go on welfare, to cut grass, deliver papers," which is what I did as a kid, and be like the head of the household for you at 10. And I said, "You realize what you did to me?" And she said, "You should have done it. It's all your fault. You left me. You abandoned me." And those two phone calls, which were back to back, I realized I put myself in a deep prison and stuck myself with all kinds of shame and guilt and terrible feelings about myself because I did not live up to what these two people wanted me to do. And what they wanted me to do was unthinkable. And I remember I went back and I wrote for hours and hours and hours. And I thought, I'm going to write a book. And the reason I'm going to write it, and I honestly believe this, the only reason it's been successful, I wasn't trying to keep score. I wasn't trying to, say anything bad about anybody. I also wasn't trying to make myself the hero of my own story because I don't feel that. I feel like I made a million mistakes, made a lot of backward steps. But I wrote it because I wanted people to know you can overcome things in your personal life that you think are impossible. Because from that moment on, a whole new world opened up to me. I understood what had been holding me back. And I also understood the blame I had put on myself. So I have an expression: childhood is a city you can never leave. And for a lot of us, that's a good thing. Not everybody had a perfect childhood, but what you were as a kid, what you're exposed to, plays a tremendous role in your adulthood. And if you have a terrible, terrible childhood, some with issues you cannot resolve, they can be a lifelong hindrance. And I've had almost 30,000 reviews on Goodreads and Amazon. And the thing I'm overwhelmed by is how many people who will tell me that they read my book and they feel that they are ugly, fat, stupid, whatever. They were told these things as kids and they never overcame it. And they're unable to form good adult relationships, unable to trust, unable to love. Many of them tell me, I'm going to die alone and miserable. And I always write them back and I say, you don't have to feel that way about yourself. What you were told isn't right. Yeah, we all probably love to believe we look like movie stars and professional athletes. And if we don't look like that, we're failures. But there's somebody for everybody. And most of us aren't like that at all. Certainly I'm not. And that you've been told these things and you believe these things. And now you feel you don't deserve anything better. And I found that a lot of lessons that I learned along the way and a lot of things I learned about myself writing the book. But one is that it takes a tremendous amount of work to undo if there's a lot of damage in your early years. It takes a lot of work and most people can't do it, frankly. I've read every self-help book you can read. Even went to therapy. None of these things really helped me very much, and I'm not making fun of any of it. What helped me was to see the moment that I think my spirit broke. My spirit broke in that house in Gallup, New Mexico, when I watched my father slam my mother to the ground, rip me out of her arms. He hit me as hard as he could in the head, and I didn't even feel it. I think I was having a nervous breakdown, didn't know what that meant. And he called me a mama's boy and a sissy and a coward. But I felt all those things, not because I didn't do what he thought, but because I didn't stand up for my mom. And that memory for over 42 years stayed buried in my head. And I don't think I ever loved or liked myself ever again after that happened. Something broke that didn't get fixed. And it began to repair when I went back in that house and realized what had happened to me.
So, is there anything that you didn't said through your book or in any communication medium to the world that you want to share?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think the one thing I want to communicate, and I've done all kinds of interviews with doctors, lawyers, PhDs, and people who treat children that are from broken homes, children that are foster kids, children that are abandoned, children that are deeply troubled. And the one thing they always ask me is, how do you break out of this? How do you stop from being a broken adult when you're a thoroughly broken child? And I tell them the most important thing you can do if you find a child in this situation, the one thing, and there's only one word, in my opinion, and it's trust. They don't trust anybody. The adults they trusted abused them tremendously. And if you're like me, if somebody said, hey, tell me what's wrong, and you tell them, and they go back to my dad, he'd beat you half to death and he might kill the person that you told. So creating trust and letting a child feel safe and feel that trust and then love comes after that is the hardest single thing that you'll ever overcome if you have a traumatic childhood. You won't trust. You won't believe in yourself. At some level, you believe you deserve it. You believe that this is the way it has to be. I talk to people, interact with people where the dad was an alcoholic and beat the mom. They married somebody to beat them. Their kids going through the same thing. It's as if familiarity is what they understand, and they don't think they deserve better. You pick what you deserve, and most of these people pick the worst thing for them because they think that's what they deserve. And they, if you don't love yourself, you're going to find people who agree, and it's not going to come out well. And I think there's a lot of lessons, but the profundity of that in the human nature, I think, is the single biggest thing I could point to and say, if you have any situation where that exists, fundamentally understand that a broken person doesn't trust themselves. They don't love themselves. They're not capable of making good decisions. And they're also going to be constantly afraid of the world, of the people they interact with, and of themselves. And this will lead to disaster. And it does over and over again.
So, what all you learned from all these experiences?
I guess what I've learned is that there's a lot of good people in the world. And I'll start with you, trying to do podcasts to reach good people. That if you get overly worried about making mistakes or trusting the wrong people and you don't trust anybody, that's not healthy. That a really healthy person is going to be abused, going to be lied to, but you know immediately that's not for you. You don't deserve that. You deserve better, and you pull back from it. It's not like a guy like you, because he's got a healthy outlook on life, never had a bad thing happen. That's not the way it works. This is not a black and white situation. What I've learned mostly is that if you have a very healthy sense of who you are, that you like yourself, that you feel that you're capable, that you feel like you have people who love you and trust you, that you feel like you have a place in this world, that's the best single thing you can have. And that it sounds simple. It sounds just completely simple, but you have no idea. Well, you probably do, but a lot of us have no idea when you walk down the street how many people hate themselves, feel inferior, inadequate, incapable. And they come in all sizes and shapes, colors and stripes, and it has nothing to do with any of that. It's what you carry inside that tells you what you're worth, what you deserve. And all good gifts come from believing in yourself, deserving better, and wanting better for the people around you. And it's the most powerful thing I can think of.
So, 30 plus years you worked in your own business. So, as a human being, what you have learned and what all those things that that you have collected today.
You know, what I've collected more than anything are experiences with people like you. I mean, it's amazing when you write a book like this. And a lot of people have been through things you can't even imagine, way, way worse than me. And you also learn that there's a lot of goodness out there that people don't tap into. That a lot of people, not only are they good people, they want to be good. They want to do better. They want, if you just watch the news and read about the bad things, you'd think the whole world was evil. But I have found it's not that. That the overwhelming number of people I come into contact with are really good people. And if you help them, they'll help you, they'll help others. Even in my lobbying firm, we've had nearly 300 interns. These are kids that from every walk of life who come into our firm and over a semester have learned how Congress works, how politics works, and they've gone on to better jobs, and they've recommended other people. And the whole play it forward has been incredibly powerful thing in my life.
So, how do you define yourself being a service provider and expressing yourself through your book? So, this two different persons in you.
So there are two different persons here. There's the kid that grew up scared to death of everything, knowing that he participated in a lot of criminal activities with his dad, knowing that he watched a helpless, mentally ill mother suffer tremendously, watch his siblings suffer tremendously, and they still suffer, right? They still have things that are difficult for them. All four of us do. And the thing that I would say that I've learned is if you can break through that and begin to trust and begin to believe in yourself, that I found that with all the clients we work with, people we work with, they've all helped me. They all read the book. They all said, we're on your side. We'll help you. We believe in you. I've made so many friendships because of this book. I've also found so many people with heartbreaking stories. The other thing that's interesting to me is how many people have overcome far more than I have. Far, far more. Right? You know, you may think you've gone through the worst thing in the world, but if you look around you, you haven't. I think James Baldwin said he thought that he suffered more than anybody, and then he started reading about the world, just the things that have happened in our world in the last 24 hours. You see people all the time struggling to do better. And what I found more than anything is if you're the kind of person that wants to help and that does interact with people in a really healthy way, that's as big a gift as life itself.
So, do you have a memorable experience that you cannot forget in your life?
You know, I do. I'll give you from a very early age, always look at, there's an expression that even Hitler liked dogs and children, right? No one person is evil 100%. And my dad was like that. He, one day we're in the desert and it's 100 degrees in Arizona on this day, August day, and he stops our car. It's just he and I. And he goes into the desert. He finds these coyotes that have been caught in traps. Navajo people don't like coyotes. They eat their sheep. They see them as sort of like a devil figure. And, you know, they're not, coyotes are bad for what they do. But my dad had a strong belief these animals just do what animals do and it's not their fault. One day he took a bag of beef jerky and a bottle of water. We walked out in the desert about 150 yards and there was a coyote that was caught in this trap. And he's so strong. He pulled this trap off. It was almost like a bear trap. Can't believe he was that strong. And he left some water and jerky for the coyote. And he walked backwards. So the coyote's scared. He's going to attack you. And my dad gave me about a 10-minute sermon. And it stuck with me forever. He said, look around you. Where are we standing? And I said, we're standing in the hottest place on earth. He said, no, this was an ocean. Millions of years ago, this was an ocean. This was underwater. And he starts describing geological time from 75 million years ago until right now. And he starts explaining to me, you're no better than that helpless coyote. If you don't read, you don't study, you don't learn. The only difference between you and that coyote is you have the capacity to think and educate yourself and go out into the world and produce things that help other people. I want you to read the English classics. I want you to read the Bible cover to cover, not for religion, because he was not religious, but for education. I want you to pick up every book you can, science, math, economics, social studies, history, and I want you to become the best educated person on earth, or else you and that coyote are exactly the same. We walked back to the car. I never forgot it. And there were a lot of bad things Dad did on that very day. But on that lesson in life has stuck with me. And I've always believed, because I have a few learning disabilities, I mean, nothing overwhelming, but I've read myself out of poverty. I've read and read and read. And I talked to every person I could talk to that was smarter than me. And I asked them questions. And I tried to forge a path ahead by using the goodwill of others, not using, but tapping into to try to produce a better life. And I think that my childhood taught me that, and that my experience with my dad, even though I was scared all the time, life was very frightening on a daily basis. My only goal for most days was simply to get through that single day. And I hated being home. I didn't want to be home for 1 minute more than I had to. But I went out in the town. I went out to my paper route customers. Everywhere I went, getting jobs, and I learned from people that were better, smarter, but I also found that there were a lot of good people in the world, and there were a lot of people a whole lot nicer than the ones that raised me. And I realized that could be the window to a better world. and it has been.
So, what are those qualities that help you to be the person that you are today?
I would just say curiosity, honesty, integrity, and trying, whenever you interact with anybody, to interact in their best interest as well as your own. There's a lot of bad things said about lobbyists, lying, cheating, and all that, but I found it's the opposite. If you're successful talking to somebody who doesn't agree with you, maybe they have a different point of view entirely. Maybe they disagree with you on most things. If you're completely honest with them and you're straightforward with them, you're going to build some friendship somewhere in that. That most people think they have nothing in common when in fact they do. And what I found is if you work at it hard enough and you're sincere about it, and you're not trying to get something for nothing, you're sincere about it, there's an incredible world out in front of you of goodwill, and not only that, of really productive things that can get done. What I think's gone wrong with American politics right now is that you had two parties that really did overlap and interact, and that's pulled apart. And the world will be a lot better when it pulls back closer together, that you're so much stronger with people that don't agree with you, that you can get along with, because they're going to teach you something every day of your life. And they're going to teach you things that you didn't believe, that you thought were wrong, and you're going to find out you're the one that was wrong. And that I really think that of all the lessons I've learned, and it was because of childhood, because I had to go outside myself and my family to learn, right? Because my parents weren't teaching me anything that was good. And, but it opened that world. And I think that in my professional career, that by the time I was 10 years old, I was educated enough to do what I'm doing now, because I'd already learned all that. I had learned to listen to other points of view, and I'd learned to figure out what the best way to interact is. And it sounds simple enough. I've said this a couple times, but my God, it's powerful. Such a powerful lesson to interact with the world, as if you're not always right, they're not always wrong. See what you can learn, see what goodwill you can build.
So, I know for this question, you can't answer in simple words or in the limited time that we have. But in the whole life of yours, if you look back and your senses have witnessed the constant change, the evolution, right, all these years, right? So, to summarize, to say in few words about all the things that you have experienced, and that you want the next generation or the upcoming generations, that you want to share the valuable words from all your experiences. So what are those words, like, we should tell from the day one that you born on the planet till today?
Wow, you are very good at what you do. I guess what I've learned, when you go back, when you travel, and I know you do that a lot, you talk to people from all over the world. The first thing you realize when you go into an area that has poverty or a lot of hate, that what people mostly suffer from is fear, right? They're afraid of you. You look different than me. You think different than me. You might be that. When you can break that down, you've broken down one of the most powerful invisible barriers on the face of the earth. So as a kid, I grew up as a minority in my own country. Now, people who are really minorities, that's what they always experience. But on the Navajo Indian Reservation, 98% of those kids were Navajo. Like 2% of us were Anglo. In Gallup, most of the town was Mexican, Indian, different ethnicities. So I wasn't afraid of other ethnicities. I wasn't afraid of people who looked different than me. I wasn't afraid of people who thought different than me. I may have been in the beginning, but at some point, you realize that we're all the same. You know, you like chocolate, I like vanilla. That doesn't mean you're right, I'm wrong, just means we like different things. Though we have so much more in common than we don't. And whenever I see people who I think are really held back, and when I hear from people who I think are in a really bad place, I can tell because of what they've written me, what they've said to me. The first thing I see is fear, ignorance, and unwillingness to see the world outside themselves. For me, the greatest gift that I had was seeing the world outside myself, because my world was a trap. My dad's a very violent guy. He's a psychopath. And to believe what he believed, I'd either be behind bars or dead. My mom's very mentally ill, even though I love her to death. There's something broken there. So for me, I had to jump outside that immediately. And I had to talk to people who looked different than me, who thought differently than me. Not only that, I was dependent upon their goodwill, oftentimes, just to get along in the world. So the profound lesson I learned early is that whenever you see something that's broken in society, you're almost always looking at underlying beliefs and underlying behaviors to hold people back. People hold themselves back all the time, and they do it because they're afraid, and they're afraid because that's all they know. It may be the hardest thing that a person does is to break through that fear, break down those barriers, learn about somebody else, learn about the bigger world, extend yourself when you don't want to, really reach out and try to grab the world, because the world's there for you to grab if you do it. And I found the most successful people in the world are always people that are willing to do the next thing, the extra thing, to learn something new, to talk to somebody they didn't want to talk to go do something they did not want to do, to experience something that might have made them afraid. Why are they afraid? They may fail. But I'm going to tell you, failure is almost always a result of people being afraid to try. They're failing much more because they won't try than if they actually failed. If they actually failed, if they kept doing it, they'd probably get good at it. But it's an incredible barrier. And in my book, I found out it was even a much bigger barrier than I thought. I know it has been in me. I was always afraid, but I kept pushing through that fear. Now, I should have done better, could have done better, but I've done as well as I could, and it's very much helped me. So what I would tell people in this world is break those barriers down, look for something new to learn, reach out and do something you don't want to do, experience things that are hard, don't give up, never stop trying.
So tell me about your skill set, like the skills that you have developed, which made you to have this personality today. So how did that happen? And like you said, you are a curious person by nature. So how did you become an expert today?
Well, I think the people that work with me are a lot smarter than me. They're all more expert than me. But one thing I think I know how to do is ask the right questions, but I'm also willing to read and learn things that I don't know anything about, right? How are you going to get smarter? You're going to talk to people smarter than you. You're going to experience things that you don't really want to experience because they're outside your scope. But I think reading, learning, constantly trying to improve, people will give you the benefit of the doubt, and people will wind up helping you. And curiosity will get you there. You don't have to have the world's greatest personality. I certainly do not. You don't have to be a super extrovert. I think the world is run by introverts, frankly, who are just extroverted enough to reach out into the world. The world's run by people who are trying harder, trying to be smarter, and trying to do the right thing. And I absolutely believe a lot of people don't do that. And I don't understand why not. They get in their own way. They're their own worst enemy. No one wants to help them because they're not helpful. They're not willing to learn the next thing, not willing to try the next thing. Believe me, we hold ourselves back way more than the world holds us back. And I absolutely believe there's no person in the world who cannot overcome this if they're willing to try. You do not have to have a genius IQ. You do not have to look like a supermodel or a super athlete. You just have to try. But you really have to do it. And you're going to fail a bunch of times. You're going to feel stupid a lot. I feel stupid every day. I get into things where I think, oh my God, I don't understand this. Well, what's the answer? Try to understand it. Try to find people who understand it with you. Try to be part of the solution. Again, you think it's simple, but look around you and look around at how many people don't do that and don't try. So you get to be my age, and if you haven't done a lot of those things, you're bitter, you're angry, you're alone, but you've done it to yourself. And I don't fault people as much as others on this, because I'm going to go back to something with our limited time. Childhood is a city you can never leave. If you show me a child who's nurtured, loved, and is absolutely treated like there's something special or valuable, that person will grow into a successful adult. I don't care what else their skill set is, their breed, color, ethnicity, none of that matters. You show me a kid that's loved and nurtured as a child and believes in themselves, that child will accomplish a great deal. So many people don't have that. And my biggest sadness in this world, and part of it's the sadness of my own childhood, is when you don't have that, life gets very hard for you. It's a very, very tough place to be. You throw in a little bit of poverty, a little bit of violence, it's miserable.
So, how you become adaptable in this constant changing world?
Well, I'm not a doctor, so I'm a lobbyist. I have some advanced education, but not a doctor. Master's degree and some other education background. But I'm going
No,
to tell
no.
you,
My question is how you become so adaptable for the constant change that is happening in your life.
I bet you're better at that than I am, but I'm going to say that absolutely see the world changing fast, try to catch up with it. I think there's one of two ways to approach life. I've learned all I'm going to learn and I'm done. Or this is the way it is, and if you don't agree with me, too bad for you. My way or the highway. Or the world's changing. How can I figure out how it's changing? I think probably if you could tell a person, other than the word trust for kids who grow up like me, the other word is adaptation, the willingness to see change. I think mankind's greatest attribute, the thing that's done the very most for us as a human race, is to be adaptable, to be changeable, to see what's next, and try to even get ahead of that, see what you think will be next. But there couldn't be a more important skill, because it opens everything else up. If you know everything, there's nothing to learn. If I know I don't like somebody, then there's what's the point? I'm not going to ever deal with you. But if you reverse that and see what you can learn, see what you can do to change, oh my God, the world is your oyster. It's an open blank page that you can fill up with your own dreams.
So, in 30 plus years of experience, you being a people's person, communicating with different human beings, how that feels and what that taught you.
It feels good. When I wrote the book, I didn't expect anything, right? I just decided I would do this. And most first-time authors who are nobodies, and that's certainly that, don't have much success, right? 99% or 98% of all the books don't even break even. But when I wrote the book, because I had a lifetime of experience that I think was relevant to what we're talking about today, success came from people coming to me and asking me questions and me asking them questions, and it opened door after door after door. That I've been able to interact with people like yourself and tens of thousands of readers and lots of book clubs and lots of people who read the book will walk straight up to me on the street and say, I read your book, and we'll start a conversation. If that hadn't happened, that conversation never happened. And I don't know that person, and I don't learn something special about them. I'd say that almost every person I've met that I didn't know well, like you're just meeting them for the first time, there's something really special about them. But you don't know that, and you're not going to know that unless you talk to them. And a lot of times, what makes them special makes them also fascinating. Right? To me, the world is either a fascinating place or just boring, because there's nothing to learn, nothing to do. But for me, it's fascinating. There's all these people who have these great things that have happened, thoughts that they've thought, things they've done. And every day I pinch myself and go, wow, I've had another great day. I've learned so much. I've enjoyed this day. And I'm bigger, I'm better, I'm smarter, I'm stronger, because I have some part of you in me. And I feel the same way with books. As a little guy, I would get under my sheets and with the flashlight and read until I fell asleep. Reading and running as hard as I could were my two outlets. And exercise and reading are still my outlets. But the reason they're outlets is because they open you up to what's outside your own door. And everything that's worth having is outside your own door.
So in whole, when in whole, in the population of humanity all around the world, so you are one among them. So what do you think that living in this long span of your life, that world is so big, and if humans from any part of the world is watching and listening to you, and if you have something that is really important that they have to know, so what do you say that it makes them, they think about what you say for a long time?
I think, and again, fantastic question, and thank you. And I wish I were more qualified to give you an answer. But I think if you were to go talk to 5 people that you wouldn't talk to. Go help somebody. Show up in a flood zone where people are dying. Show up in a war zone. Well, maybe not in a war zone because you might get killed, but show up and talk to people and interact with people that you don't agree with. Interact with people you think may hate you. Interact with people you hate. The world really we make it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. We create a lot of enemies that don't need to be enemies. I honestly believe everybody really wants the same thing. They want safety, they want security, they want to be loved, they want a life for their kids. I find that the people who do try to break these barriers down, who really, really work at it, we need a lot more of them. You see people who show up in disaster areas and feed people. Doctors Without Borders. There are a lot of good people, but there are a lot of more people that aren't doing anything they could. There are a lot of people who walk around in a shell, believing what they believe and thinking the other guy's wrong. And everything that you can do to break that down makes the world a safer place, a more humane place, a place where everybody can live in it. And I think that if you just watch the news, you think everybody hates each other. But when I walk outside my door, maybe I'm lucky because I live in the Washington, D.C. area. There's a lot of different ethnicities, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different everything. I see mostly good in the world. And I see many more chances for people to do good. If I could tell your listeners one thing, volunteer to do something. Spend 5 or 10 hours a month helping somebody else. For no pay, no benefit, nothing. Just go do that. Whatever it is, and their opportunities are everywhere. Go interact with them. You think you've got it bad? You go help somebody in trouble, you'll find out you got life pretty darn good. Most of us have life very easy compared to people that are right around us. And it does more good for you than them, which is the amazing thing. Every bit of mentorship, volunteerism, anything you do, is good for you. And I'm not saying you should do this to be selfish, but believe me, all acts of kindness make you kinder. And they help that person and they pass that on. There's just not enough of it. And it's not hard to do. It's very easy to do. And if you look around yourself, there are superstar people in my life. My book, I outlined 7 angels. Without them, I would have never made it. And why did they do it? They had nothing, who am I? Nobody. But they didn't treat me that way. For no reason, for no particular good that came to them, they helped me. And they gave me some belief. They gave me some hope. They gave me a reason to do that for others. Play it forward. Look around you. The human race is just one race. That's it. And we make it way too complicated. It doesn't need to be.
So, can you share your online presence to my listeners?
Absolutely. This has been a real pleasure.
So, can you spell it like your online presence to my listeners for watching and listening to this so that they can follow you, they can see what you're doing, they can learn from you?
Sure. It's one word, davidcrowauthor.com without the E. Just David, CROW, author.com. And you can keep up with me, and I'd love to keep up with you and keep up with all the readers. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and all that, but davidcrowauthor.com is the way to get started. And this has been a super pleasure. I really appreciate you reaching out, give me a chance to talk to you. I know it's pretty late where you are. You don't look it, though. You're too much younger than me. You probably never look tired. But thank you for this chance. And I hope to meet you someday in person. I hope we interact again.
So can you spell your website? The listeners who are listening this on audio, can you spell it?
Our business website, although it's DCLRS, just letters.com, and davidcrowauthor.com. So I'd love to interact with you guys either way. And again, you've made my day.
Definitely. And as an expert, as a person who is into multiple things and writing books and having wise experience and talking and being a person who has a lot of wisdom, what's your observation about my work? You have seen my work.
I want them, if they don't mind, to buy The Pale-Faced Lie, which is my memoir about my life, and let me know what they think and send me a note telling me what they think, good, bad, but The Pale-Faced Lie, LIE. And hopefully they enjoy it. Hopefully they interact with me, and hopefully I make some new friends.
So what's your observation about my work?
I think what you're doing to put the whole world inside your podcast, you're way, way, way ahead of me. I think it's fascinating. I've started following you, and I love the interviews you've done. And I think you're onto something very big, my friend.
So how this experience is going to add to me as a human being?
Made me feel closer to the world, closer to the bigger world, and makes the world less scary, less frightening, less fearful, less angry, less closed off. None of us should be afraid of each other. And when I get to interact with you and you're in a whole different world away from me, both time zone and world, and you interact with an incredible array of people I'll never meet, but I see you and I as kindred spirits. I see us both wanting the same thing. And I say to myself, why not? There doesn't have to be, oh my God, he's over there, he's different. No, we want the same things. This is a incredibly positive experience, and I very much enjoyed being with you.
So you have experienced completely different things in your life, and you was very adaptive, and you're fast in adaptation. So me doing diversified work, completely interviewing completely different people who are into different places. How, I mean, if you relate yourself with me, and if I relate myself with you in terms of adaptation, so how this is actually important for any human being who is watching and listening to this, like this diversity.
I agree, and I'd love to know how you got to be you, because what you're doing at such a young age is so incredible. I'd love to know your life journey and where you see this taking you, because I think it's got you in a very good place.
Can I put this clip on my podcast with your permission?
Please, please do.
So thank you very much again for giving me opportunity to present you on my show, David. It's an honor for me and it's a pleasure meeting you. And definitely, as you said, I'll meet you in person one day.
Same here, and I look forward to it. You have a great day.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.